Tumor. It's not a tumor.
That was a funny movie. Hey, look, that lady's running. All right.
Is Arnold Schwarzenegger in Kindergarten Cop?
Yes.
Is that the movie with the kids who like live in the cabin and they're like really poor and they like run around in the dirt? Is that a different movie?
Yeah.
It must be a tumor. It's not a tumor.
He's a cop and he has to figure stuff out. He serves
Does he like follow
undercover.
the teacher?
Yeah.
Maybe that is that mission.
He serves undercover and he takes over the kindergarten class so he can ask the kids questions about their parents.
One little kid that I guess.
Okay.
He's so funny.
So here is the skin. Now, so what are your do y'all know the senses? There's actually 6. People say 5, but there's actually 6. Scientists say there's 6 senses. What are they? Taste.
Pain. Touch.
Pain. Touch. Okay.
Smell.
Yeah, I guess you could add. Pain will be a 7. Smell.
Hearing.
Balance.
Hearing.
Sight. Did sight last? Usually sight comes first. You could maybe say pain too. So we're going to talk about each of these chapters and how they work. Now, let's talk about the sense of touch and pain. And there's a temperature sense, hot and cold. They're actually separate from one another. Pain is sensed by free nerve endings in the skin. So here's the skin, y'all remember that. And all these yellow things are neurons coming, and there are little sensors located. These yellow ends here are all sensors. Now the ones that look like tree branches right here, those are your pain sensors. See free nerve endings? They extend up through the basement membrane into the epidermis. And they look like little tree branches. And when those are hit or broken, that's a sense of pain. And that will go to your brain and say, oh, we've had some damage. Now those are located in different amounts in different places. All of these receptors are. Do you know the area of your body that has the least amount of pain receptors? The back of your elbow and your knees. They have the least amount of pain receptors. You can pinch your elbow. Go ahead, pinch your elbow. It doesn't really hurt. It hurts a little, but not too bad. Don't pinch it so hard it bleeds. Yeah.
Well, if you had an injury, like you severed your arm or something.
Yes.
Cut through the pain receptors. Why do you still feel the pain?
Because these things will send messages for a long time after they're damaged.
Really?
Yeah. Now, if you completely cut it and sever the nerve that leads out of there, you wouldn't feel pain there. But where it's severed, sends signals. So, like say you cut off your arm, you'd feel pain coming from the severed end of the neuron, which keeps sending it.
Like I sliced my finger, and like when I did it, I couldn't feel like the top part of the skin, but I could feel like the bottom part.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I still can't feel it, like from here down.
So you severed the nerve that carries that signal away. Huh.
Woo.
I got knee surgery, and I can no longer feel where they cut me open on my knee.
I hit some nerve went out when I broke my leg, but I couldn't feel from there down at all.
Can you feel it now?
Oh yeah, I can feel it now, but it
came back.
Yeah, it came back.
So pain is one sense. Now there's touch. Your sense of touch involves 2 types of receptors. There's receptors that are on the very top layer of the skin, of the dermis, at the very edge. Those are called Mesner's corpuscles. They exist up here at the very tip, and they sense light touch. Mesner's corpuscles. You can see it looks like a curled up neuron here. And so light touch is sensed by them. deep pressure, which is sensed further down in the dermis, down here, these are called Pacinian corpuscles. So Pacinian corpuscles sense deep pressure. Mesner's corpuscles sense light touch. And always remember Pacinian pressure to keep from getting those two mixed up. Are you all with me here? Could be a multiple choice question. Which senses light pressure? A, Mesner's corpuscles. B, Pacinian corpuscles. If you didn't listen, which senses deep pressure, which would it be? Which senses deep pressure? Mesner's corpuscles or Pacinian corpuscles? Pacinian, deep pressure. And then finally, also in the skin, you have hot and cold, heat and cold sensors, which it doesn't show specifically, but they're located here in the dermis too. You have one set of sensors for hot, and you have one set of sensors for cold. So heat and cold come in on different pathways. Sometimes something's so cold that it burns. But what you're really feeling is pain and cold at the same time. Now, yes?
About that, would that be why, like, if you had extreme hypothermia, you start feeling really warm with something like that?
That's a good question. I don't know why that is. I don't know if maybe the brain is overloaded or I don't know. We need to ask a neurologist. Does anyone know a neurologist? Yes? Who do you know? Yeah. Stephanie's dad is a neurologist. It's a good question for him. Now, why is this naked man standing here with color all over him? Well, this is the idea of referred pain. Every doctor must know this chart inside and out. Because referred pain is pain that's coming from the organs that are inside your body is felt elsewhere on the body. For instance, if you have a problem with your lungs, you'll feel pain in your neck. If you have a problem with your liver or gallbladder, you'll feel pain on the right side of your neck or right here. If you have a problem with your stomach, you'll feel pain right there. More up in your chest than in your stomach. If you have a problem with your small intestine, you feel it right there. Have you ever said, "Oh, I got a stomach ache"? That's not a stomach problem. You know what it's a problem with? Your small intestine. You got gas or something in your small intestine that's expanding and stretching the walls and it hurts. Maybe you got some bacteria living in there because you just ate something, an old sandwich that was been sitting on the couch for a couple days. Don't do that. So anyway, so you're really, the stomach ache is really small intestine problems. Female ovary pain is felt there. An appendix problem will be right here. Problem with your colon is right there. Problem with your bladder is right there. That makes sense. That's where the bladder is. But not all of these make perfect sense. Look where a problem with your heart is. Right here. People who have heart attacks will often grasp their arm. My arm hurts. It's really the heart. Kidneys are all over here in this lower area, but often the lower back is a kidney problem. If you have back pain, a lot of people go into the doctor. "Oh, I got terrible back pain," and the doctor immediately thinks it might be the kidneys. He doesn't tell you that, or maybe he will, but they'll do some tests, have you pee in a cup or something, and see if your kidneys are functioning. Often they don't want to tell you what he thinks it might be because he might be wrong, and then you might get alarmed. If you got arm pain, it might just be something with your arm. It might not be your heart. But he'll test it just in case. Liver and gallbladder. Stomach can be felt in the back. Heart can be felt in the back. Pancreas trouble right there. So you got to know this well if you're a doctor, you can imagine. people come in complaining about certain parts, and they don't understand about referred pain. So why is this? Why would pain in the heart be felt maybe in the arm? Well, it's because of what we call shared pathways. Here's the skin from your left arm. And if something breaks the skin on your left arm, a signal goes up through this neuron. It goes over here, it synapses in the spinal cord, and goes up to the brain. And the brain says, oh, I got pain in the arm. If your heart has pain, it'll send a signal down through here into your spinal cord, and it synapses with the same neuron that goes to the brain. So the heart and the left arm share the same pathway to the brain. And the brain doesn't know if it's the heart or the left arm. So the brain figures left arm, because the heart hardly ever hurts. You hardly ever have pain coming from your heart. It's probably never happened to you yet. It might happen to you when you're older. Usually heart attacks happen when you're older. So that's why you have the referred pain, because there are shared pathways going up to the brain. And the body has done this to conserve energy. So rarely do you have a heart attack. Why have your own pathway for it, since it's so rare? So I remember one time in high school, when I was on the soccer team, the coach was making us run because we had a bad game or something. And we ran, and I was breathing so hard that my neck was hurting. I remember the pain in my neck. I was like, ah. And many years later, I figured out that was my lungs in pain, because they were working so hard. You ever felt that, anyone who runs a lot? No? It must have been bad if I was tired, because I was the best runner on the team. It's not hard to believe, is it? Okay. So that kind of takes you through 10.3. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about 10.4 and 5, and that's, even though that's not in the reading tonight, that's going to give us a little more time to do our IDs, which is fine. We'll start our IDs on Monday. Let's talk about the sense of smell next. Smell operates through, there's a bulb of tissue called the olfactory bulb that you may have read about last chapter. It's on the roof of your nose, and it sits right here under the brain. So I have a brain here. You see the brain? If I only had a brain. Is anyone going to go see the new Oz movie? I'm sorry I brought up something other than anatomy. I don't want to do it again. These little bands of tissue right here are called the olfactory nerves. Did you see them maybe when we did our sheep dissection? Yeah. The olfactory nerves end in a little bulb in us, which is a little collection of tissue. And it sits right above the roof of your nose. Now, in the sheep, these olfactory bulbs were huge, because sheep have a lot better sense of smell than we do. Our sense of smell is pretty lame. The reason why is because we walk on all fours. Our nose is very far from the ground. And smell molecules are pretty heavy usually. And heavy molecules tend to sit on the ground. So organisms that evolved up in the trees, or that evolved to walk upright, usually don't have that great a sense of smell. So anyway.
What about underwater animals?
They smell too. It works in a different way. They don't breathe in air. but they usually have water coming across their bodies somehow. And so like a fish has nostrils, and the water will go in there and the molecules will get in there and activate their sense of smell. So they do still smell. So hanging off this olfactory bulb, there's the olfactory bulb right there. Do you want a close-up of that olfactory bulb? Right there. Okay, so here's the olfactory bulb. And here you can see there are nerve cells in it, thousands of them. This is just showing a few that have branches that attach, and there's a synapse right there with this nerve cell right here. And these nerve cells here have cilia, little hairs on the end of them. And the cilia have receptor proteins that are a certain shape. One of them is the right shape to pick up the smell of sulfur, which is present in doo-doo. And so when this doo-doo molecule gets in your nose, it goes up to the roof of your nose and binds with one of those receptors. And when it binds with one of those receptors, this thing will fire off a signal, and that will go to the brain and say, we've got some doo-doo in our nose, and you probably want to get out of here because there's probably a lot of bacteria around here that will cause you diseases. You don't want to be messing around with all this feces. Feces is a scientific name for that.
Is there a way that you could like permanently damage all of your cilia?
Absolutely. Yes, there are chemicals that you can breathe that are noxious and will damage these things.
What about a blow to the head?
Well, then you're talking about where smell is finally sensed. See, the smell. Whoa.
Oh, that would definitely mess
The smell goes in from the olfactory bulb, and then it eventually goes to the temporal lobe, and it's not really sensed until it gets to the temporal lobe.
So if someone was hit on the head with a TV as a baby.
So a blow to the brain could damage that smell area, and you may not be able to smell. Is that what happened? You can't smell?
No.
Nothing?
Nope.
Wow.
I still do it all the time. I'm like, do you smell that? She's like, shut up. No.
So have you done ever like, you can't smell nothing at all gives any smell?
Not really.
See some stink
No.
That's interesting.
Let's run tests on.
I don't mind. Good joke.
I thought I had some video footage here. I'll find you the video footage. Let me find you the video footage. I think it's in my HD file.
Okay, we're the first time of that.
What'd you do? Hasta la vista, baby.
Here we go. Watch video.
We can distinguish up to 10,000 different smells, which language is not equipped to describe. How do you describe the smell of a sunny afternoon? Or a newborn baby? We are literally bathed in smells, as odor molecules are floating around us all the time. Every breath draws millions of these molecules up into the nostril. The stream of molecules winds its way right up to a small patch at the top of the nose. This area is packed with millions of nerve cells that can register smells. The odor molecules dissolve in the sticky mucus surrounding the tips of these cells. Each nerve ending is studded with tiny receptors that will react to only one specific kind of molecule. Once the odor molecules lock into the correct receptor, they trigger electrical impulses. These signals feed straight into the brain area that controls emotion and memory. That explains why smells are so good at bringing back memories and influencing our mood. The conscious part of the brain eventually translates all the electric signals from the nose into what we perceive as a smell. So ultimately, we smell with our brains.
Scientists think there's about 4,000 different types of receptors. So you can sense about 4,000 different smells. Of course, there's variation, you see. Every time a baby's born, there's sometimes a change in the DNA, and there'll be a change in the receptor. So some people can smell a little bit differently than others, depending on how your receptors mutate and change. One more smell video.
Our sense of smell actually helps us to identify what we're tasting. The senses of taste and smell work together to help identify flavors. That's why when we have colds and our noses are stuffed up, our sense of taste suffers. We can't identify flavors as well, and we probably don't enjoy the food as much. The food would seem to taste differently because our sense of smell isn't helping to identify the flavor. In the nasal cavity of our noses, there are fine hairs that pick up smells. These hairs send signals to the brain. There are about 10,000 different smells or odors in the world. Like the sense of taste, the sense of smell can help us avoid bad food. Food that is not good to eat or that has spoiled smells bad, so we would know not to eat it. Animals rely heavily on their sense of smell for finding each other or for locating food.
Now let's talk about taste right now too, since taste and smell are very similar. The tongue is responsible for much of your sense of taste, but scientists have found out that you have taste receptors all over the inside of your mouth, not just on your tongue. They're on your cheeks, they're on the roof of your mouth, they're in the back of your mouth on the sides. And taste receptors work, they look like this. If you take the surface of the tongue and you go close up on it with an electron microscope, you'll see what looks like this. The tongue is actually made up of a whole bunch of extensions, and they call them papillae. These large extensions here are called papillae. And these papillae have little cracks in them. You see that little crack right there? Up close. You see how there's a little crack right there? If you were a little tiny man walking along here, you'd fall down in that crack. And that's what molecules do. When you're eating, the molecules get all over the place, and some of them get down in these cracks. And it's down in these cracks, let me see if I have another picture here, where you have series of cells. This right here is, these cells are sticking out from the tongue, and the crack is over here on the right. So what happens is these taste molecules fall down, and they go into these holes, and this whole thing right here is called a taste bud. So the taste buds aren't really on top of your tongue, they're down in the cracks of the papillae. And anyway, the food molecules get down here, and just like in the sense of smell, they attach to protein receptors that are on the surface of these little hairs here. And there are several hundred different types of proteins, so there are several hundred different types of tastes. And by the way, with smell and taste, it's not just the some receptors can partially bind, and so sometimes you get a combination. There's a combination of taste that goes to the brain. But anyway, these signals will fire. If this receives, let's say you're eating sugar, a little sugar molecule attaches to the receptor, and this fires a signal, which eventually goes to the brain, and the brain goes, oh, I got sugar in my mouth. Sugar's good. We like that. It gives you a little happy feeling. There are taste buds that are very sensitive to bad tastes, and they'll fire when they hook onto the bad tasting stuff. It's not just random how your taste sensors are spread out. Toward the back of the tongue, you have more sensors that sense bitter. And toward the front of your tongue, you have more sensors that sense salt. There are bitter and salt, and the other tastes are sour and sweet. There's one called umami, which is what is umami? They show it in your book. It's a sense of a Japanese term meaning delicious, a response to certain amino acids and their chemical relatives, such as monosodium glutamate.
So there's literally a way to make something delicious, like with like the amino acids.
Gastronomy or something, or more like.
Yeah, I mean, sweet is good, and salt is good, up to a certain extent, both of those, yeah. Bitter usually tastes bad, and sour is, in between. But yeah, I mean, if you want to make something taste good, put a bunch of sugar in it. And so anyway, you're kind of pre-programmed to like stuff that is good for you and to dislike stuff that is bad for you. But you can change the programming too as you go through your life. If you taste, like for instance, alcohol, if you drink a beer, usually that's not good tasting. But your body, your brain will go, I drank it, I got a lot of energy out of it, got a lot of calories out of it. Probably coffee is a better example than beer. I shouldn't be drinking beer. You taste coffee, you don't like it at first, but your body got nutrition out of it and it didn't hurt you. So your brain goes, wait a second, maybe this is good. And so the next time it tastes it, it makes it taste a little better, and so you can get used to something. And this is true with almost anything that doesn't kill you, anything that's not poisonous. After you taste it many times, even if you didn't like it at first, you'll start liking it. So if there's something that you want to drink or eat, and you don't like the taste of it, just keep trying it and your brain will eventually adjust. You think there's no way I'd ever like mustard or whatever it is, but you can. Your brain will adjust to it if it's giving you nutrients. Your brain will figure out that it's not bad for you. Yeah?
How about like someone doesn't like milk and milk's good for you and they're like, ugh, this tastes horrible.
Yeah, they can get used to it just by tasting it over and over, as long as it's not doing the body any damage.
No?
No.
No, I don't. I have sugar in my milk.
Here's a taste video. Hey, it's a giant tongue. The Rolling Stones.
The detection of specific water-soluble molecules found in food or drink results in the sensation of taste. Specialized cells found in taste buds on the tongue contain receptors capable of interacting with molecules found in our food. When a taste receptor is stimulated, an electrical signal is produced by the sensory cell, resulting in an impulse which is transmitted to the brain and results in the perception of taste.
Okay. smelling the nastiest smell in the world?
Let's do it. Bro, can I go ahead and end this?
Yeah, y'all go use the restroom. You can turn that off.